Big breaking news last night. Alex Bregman does intend to plans to opt out of his contract with 2 years remaining and $80 million left on the table with the Boston Red Sox to head to free agency. The worst kept secret in baseball is out there, and the Red Sox most ambitious free agent signing since JD Martinez is now possibly only a 1-year deal. So with that, we bring in Jackson Roberts of Sports Illustrated to break this whole thing down. And Jackson, just got to start with this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how surprised are you today that Alex Bregman has, in fact, opted out of that contract?
I think I would say 1. I was leaning towards 0, but the only bit of surprise is he was very poor down the stretch in the regular season. So you think about that and you think maybe there's a chance that he looks at that guaranteed 40 mil per year over the next 2 years and says, maybe I don't need to opt out this time around. But at the end of the day, he doesn't have the qualifying offer attached anymore. So teams aren't going to have to give up a draft pick to sign him. And I think we've seen in the last 2 years that really matters. That really depresses the market for some of these guys. We hear today that a team like the Kansas City Royals could be in on him this time around. That might be just some Scott Boras posturing. We'll see. But in general, I think his market is still going to be very strong, even if his results kind of tailed off toward the end of the year and he's aging a little bit and the injury concerns, et cetera. I still think it's his opportunity to cash in, and I can't say I'm surprised that he's taking it.
Yeah, let's take a look at that a little more because he is north of 30, and we heard that report from Passan, I think it was early September, and it was basically like, hey, he's going to opt out unless there's a big injury or there's a major slump here down the stretch. And really, we did get both of those this year, Jackson. Like, he overall had a very good year with the Red Sox, was an all-star, but missed over 40 games with the quad injury. Second time he's had that injury. Not a hugely injury-prone player, but that's the second time he's had that. And it was bad the last month and a half of the season. 640 OPS in September, only 9 RBI in each of the last 2 months leading into the postseason. So tell me, it was a robust, albeit late arriving market last year. What does the market look like for Alex Bregman this time around?
I think it looks fairly similar. You have reported suitors, and at this point, you can't even really say they're, reported suitors. They're just teams that we are pretty sure are going to be interested. And I think pretty much all the same characters you saw last offseason, with maybe the exception of the Cubs, who saw Matt Shaw kind of emerge as a rookie at third base there. So you'll definitely see the Tigers mentioned a lot this offseason. The Blue Jays seem like a pretty good fit. Interested to see if the Mariners get in the mix because they obviously have both Suarez and Naylor heading to free agency. But every time we talk about the Mariners spending money in the offseason, they end up not doing it. The Phillies are a team that I'm personally watching just in case they end up trading Alec Bohm. Not necessarily a team that was tied to them closely last offseason, but a team that I think if I were the Red Sox, I would be nervous. Like, I don't want the Phillies getting involved here. And I know there's Schwarber things to work out with them as well. So maybe they just focus on him and don't get involved for Bregman. And then the Royals, like Heyman mentioned last night, and as I wrote about on SI.com today, like the Royals spent $136 million on payroll this year, $125 million last year. So they'd have to get comfortable going quite significantly higher than that. But the fit from a baseball perspective makes a ton of sense. It's a young team. It's a team that needs way more offense, and they can move Maikel Garcia to second. So long story short, it should be plenty of suitors, and pretty much everyone has still said, like, we consider the Red Sox the favorite, but that doesn't mean anything is a foregone conclusion by any means.
As we have definitely seen. And I'm wondering who out of that you expect to be the most aggressive. I know it's such early days. Is it as simple as Detroit, who was right there with the Red Sox at the very end last year? Are there any one of these teams that you expect to really put in priority number one of the offseason being Alex Bregman?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much as simple as it being the Red Sox and the Tigers. Again, I caution, I hate to get comfortable saying anything is definitive this far out still because, we have to wait until 5 days after the World Series for the opt-out to become official. And then last year it took them until February, like the middle of February to sign. So at some point this offseason, it's going to feel like the Red Sox are definitely going to lose him. And at some points, it's going to feel like, why hasn't he come back yet? There's no other suitors. And that's just kind of the nature of the reporting cycle and the way Boras handles free agency and all that good stuff. So I'm not, making any predeterminations, but as far as like both money to spend, fit from a baseball perspective, familiarity with, the people in the building. The Tigers feel like the second best fit behind the Red Sox because of that AJ Hinch connection, because they were willing to spend over 170 million on them last offseason. And I'm curious to see how it all shakes out.
Do you expect the Yankees to be in on this at all?
I would say no. I mean, I don't think you make that Ryan McMahon trade if you're planning on going for Alex Bregman. And, McMahon's under contract for 2 more years, and the Yankees, I don't really think they have much of the farm system coming, but I don't really see. I mean, the only way I could maybe see that happening is if the Yankees consider trading Jazz Chisholm this offseason, which has been something that Joel Sherman's floated a couple times, but I haven't really heard much in terms of the Yankees actually considering it. It's more like a possibility that would make sense based on his contract. So if the Yankees are willing to free up some infield space with Jazz and have Bregman come in and take over, I wouldn't really see that just because of the positions that things work out a little bit wonky there. But otherwise, I would say the Yankees are probably not in on this one.
Well, that's good. That is good to hear, first and foremost. But if it's the Red Sox and the Tigers, which that's what all the reports were last season, that's certainly what the early reports are right now. With all the moves that the Red Sox have to make in this offseason, where does Alex Bregman re-signing fall on the priority list for how you look at this Red Sox team?
That's a good question, because I think a lot of people would say it's number one, and it could be for sure. But it's the Red Sox just need to keep taking this next step in their trajectory, right? You made the playoffs this year. You saw the ownership commit to spending a little bit more again. It kind of depends to me on how much budget you're going to have. If you're going to have the ability to go after, say, a Bregman and a Pete Alonso, then by all means, lock up Bregman immediately and then turn your attention to Alonso, trading for pitching, et cetera, et cetera. If you really have the bandwidth to only make one signing, I think that becomes a much weirder conversation about whether someone like Alonso is a better fit than Bregman if you can only have one or the other. At the end of the day, I'd probably still lean Bregman just from a leadership perspective, and also just the optics of the whole situation. I hate that this is such a factor, but he played a huge role in the trade of Rafael Devers, his arrival and the whole thing, the discontent that pushed Rafi out of town, essentially. So if that happened, if you basically alienated your franchise player, traded him, and then that's just for 1 year of Bregman, that would make very little sense. So I hate that it breaks down to, how things look when it should all just be about on the field, but you're going to lose a pretty significant portion of the support you built up from the fan base this season if that ends up happening. So a lot of factors to consider. Hard to say what priority 1, 2, and 3 should be when you think all 3 are important, but I definitely think re-signing Bregman is high on the list.
Yeah, you mentioned that last part about alienating Devers as a result of it. That's where it could become a true disaster. If you just don't pony up the money, no matter if it's right or not, that does then alienate your fan base of wow, we finally put in on somebody and it just blew up in all of our faces. We got the worst case scenario out of it, losing Devers for nothing and then losing Bregman for nothing, which is on the table. I think the Red Sox will be aggressive here, but that definitely is on the table. And that's what certainly, and obviously getting Devers or trading Devers for nothing was to free up a ton of money to potentially sign someone like an Alex Bregman. So it would be, in my opinion, a complete disaster if that happened. And I know there's an underbelly of Red Sox fans right now. I won't say the majority of them that are fine, go. He sucked the last month and a half of the season. He doesn't want $40 million. Go ahead, see what you can get. And I understand that. But that said, we look at an all-star first half before he got hurt. And we also see what he did for this lineup throughout the second half of the year as well. What was the most important part to you of what Alex Bregman did for the Red Sox this year?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things you bring up there. I think what sticks out to me, and, most important is a strange term, but one thing that I really would be worried about losing is just that mentorship aspect with the young hitters, particularly Roman Anthony, who, when you saw Anthony batting leadoff in front of Bregman, you had that left-right combo at the top of the order. That was the most fearsome the Red Sox lineup was all year. And just today, we're hearing anecdotes. Pete Fatsi, the Red Sox hitting coach, went on the Baseball Isn't Boring podcast, and he told a story about how essentially he fixed Roman Anthony, Bregman did, just in the middle of a series in Philadelphia earlier this summer. And it was a change the Red Sox were wanting to make with Anthony's swing, but Bregman basically just like grabbed him, brought him to the cage and said, let's do it. And he's got his hands, instead of like this big load like this, all of a sudden he's just presetting here. And from that point forward, he goes and hits 320 the rest of the season with a 945 OPS. And the Red Sox went 21-13 in those games he played after that series. So it's the mentorship. It's just like the legitimacy that having an Alex Bregman brings to your team. The guy's never missed the playoffs in 9 years as a big leaguer. It's just a lot. And I think as much as, he did struggle down the stretch, and you think about like the value proposition of signing a guy into his late 30s, the fact is you have a chance to win right now, and losing him would deal a serious blow to your hopes of winning next season.
I think it was, what was it? Long hand load. Is that what they called it on Roman? It was some like way inside baseball term. That's even too much for me.
Yeah. It does make sense though. Cause like, if you just think about like his hands being way out in front here, and he has to bring them all the way back and then all the way back through, like Alex Bregman has seen a lot of baseball, and he's just like, why do you need to do all that? Just set your hands early and drive it, because you got plenty of bat speed.
And we heard stories about that all season long, right? We heard stories about him just, being in the manager's office all the time, looking at a ton of film for other guys. That's not even him. Like that's not part of his contract. Yeah, that's not part of his contract to help out the pitchers and some of the young guys on the team. But that was certainly invaluable for the Red Sox this year, and can be down the line. Because again, what you talked about, like, I don't know, maybe this gets overblown in baseball, but like there's not a lot of winners in that clubhouse, because the Red Sox haven't done a lot of winning. Like Alex Bregman is one of the winners in Major League Baseball right now. Like you'd be hard pressed to find one who's had more than 100 postseason games and a couple of World Series rings. Like the dude just plays in October every single year. And it would be very 2020s Red Sox if they don't re-sign him. And if that, let's play out that nightmare scenario, Jackson, that they don't re-sign him. What direction would the Red Sox go, and what do you think the excuse would be?
Yeah, it depends if they like truly got outbid. If they made like a very, and these reports may or may not get out when it happens, but if they made a very competitive offer and there was just some team that was willing to go like to the $200 million threshold, then I think it becomes okay, let's take all that money and use it on 3 other guys. And you can, between maybe like a 5-year deal for Alonso and maybe a couple other supplementary signings, maybe you get, like a mid-rotation starter out of that. Like there's a way to salvage it where it doesn't look terrible. But if it's clear that it's just like, okay, we spent, what is it, like 10 million over the luxury tax this year, and we're just done doing that. And sorry, we roped you into thinking we were going to spend, and we got rid of that Devers contract and just didn't reallocate it. And, here's Marcelo Meyer and Christian Campbell in your opening day lineup. Like that's going to be, very bad news for the fan base. You're going to alienate a lot of people quite quickly. So, I think you can pivot if you end up losing him. I don't want to think about what that looks like necessarily, because I don't think it's necessarily going to turn out pretty, but there's a way you can stretch that money you were planning on giving him into, again, I think if you don't get one of Bregman or Alonso, or I'll throw Schwarber in there, even though I think he's going back to Philadelphia, if you don't get one of those 3 bats this offseason, it's hard to imagine you getting, a passing grade from all of the evaluators out there. But I'm not going to say that like the offseason is a failure because you lose him. I just think it heavily indicates that you're headed that direction.
And I think for a lot of Red Sox fans, there's not going to be a lot of sympathy, and this is harsh, but there's not going to be a lot of sympathy if you don't get 2 of those 3 bats. One of them is already here and seems to like it here. There's going to be a lot of Red Sox fans who are thinking you should be able to get 2 and trade for a big-time starting pitcher, although there's definitely the idea that there could be 2 starting pitchers that the Red Sox need to go and get. But after having said all this about Alex Bregman and weighing through what his market's going to be, what he's kind of looking for, what he means to the Red Sox, do you think the Red Sox will re-sign him?
I'm feeling on this day, on October 15th, like it's about an 85% chance of them re-signing him, which is pretty good. Guys who hit 150 get hits all the time. So, just look at the Cleveland Guardians lineup. They somehow managed to score runs. So I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen. That's just kind of the way I'm feeling on this particular day. Like you said, I feel like he liked his time in Boston this year. Obviously, he means a ton to that lineup, and Alex Cora has spoken very highly of him. I'm curious to see if we get more reports this offseason about the baseball operations, people not being on the same page about liking him as much as, say, like a Cora and a Sam Kennedy. But at the end of the day, I feel like, Craig Breslow, as much as, people talk about, some of the negative impacts or some of the negative aspects of his, tenure as chief baseball officer, he has made big moves, and I don't think that he's willing to just like let this off season go by with the loss of Bregman and not like significantly pivoting and re-signing, some big names. So that's mostly what's carrying me through here. Is I feel like that's the most obvious move you can make to at least, check the box on it being a successful offseason, and then you can kind of start, trying to throw your weight around elsewhere, like in that starting pitching market.
You bring up a good point, because I do want to ask about the starting pitching in a second, but it is important to remember that as much as we all liked the Alex Bregman signing, it was not a consensus within that front office and that staff. So that'll be very interesting to see, when he's seeking a 5-6 year deal potentially as a guy entering his age 32 season, what that could look like to the Red Sox front office. But you mentioned starting pitching there. To me, that is still the biggest priority of the offseason, I guess, Bregman aside. You wrote this week about the Joe Ryan trade packages that the Red Sox could send to Minnesota. That's still the number one guy for me, Joe Ryan, and you're in a position for the first time in a while where you can make some trades. Like the Red Sox almost have a surplus of guys to where they can make some big time trades here. So what I want to ask you is this: who would you not trade in those proposed packages to Minnesota?
That's a good question. I'm such a Peyton Tolley guy. I think between Tolley and Connolly early, I think the easy thing to do would be to say like, oh, Early had the success down the stretch. Early was the one who got the playoff start. Like, I want to keep Connolly early. Peyton Tolley, he couldn't find his secondary pitches. So, maybe he's not the guy. I think there's so much value in a guy like Peyton Tolley, who has like a unicorn fastball, essentially, where he's releasing the ball closer to home plate than any left-handed pitcher in the game right now, including Aroldis Chapman. And we saw what he was this year out of the bullpen. So I think you give Tolley an off season to work on, some of he's got like the gyro slider, and then he can work on the changeup. There's a lot of things that he can do to develop this offseason and really become, long-term kind of that, he could be that number 2 starter in a couple of years. I'm not saying he's going to be that right away by any means, but to me, he's the most special talent in that, young pitching core they have, with Early not far behind. But if you have to give up one of them, I think I'd be more inclined to sell high on Early. From a position player perspective, I don't know. I think the thing about that Joe Ryan trade is I don't know. Obviously, there were reports at the trade deadline that the Twins were looking for a big league outfielder. I don't know that will still be the case. I really don't know how they're viewing their own rebuild. But I'm comfortable giving up one of Jarren Duran or Wilyer Abreu in that move. And I think as much as I love Abreu and what he brings to the table, kind of the way his second half transpired, made me come around to the idea that he could be traded, because he's kind of been the same player in both of his first 2 seasons. He had this hot start in year 2, and we thought he was kind of taking that next step to being like a legitimate middle of the order bat. But for all the skills he has, he's kind of been a platoon player so far through 2 years and hasn't been given the chance to hit against lefties. And I don't know if they're going to give him that chance anytime soon. And that, plus the injury concerns, plus the big slump down the stretch, like I think it's okay to consider moving Abreu when you're talking about getting a talent like a Joe Ryan.
We're going to have to bring you back on, because there's so much that can be said about Joe Ryan and the pitchers that are out there in a weird free agent class. And I know that's right up your alley. So we're definitely going to have to make some time, so I don't make this all about Joe Ryan and looking at some of the trade packages. But Jackson, you said it. You've got some going out today. You've been covering, obviously, the Red Sox all season long, and you are an off-season guru, self-proposed. So tell people where they can find your work and how they can follow along throughout what's going to be a very interesting offseason for the Red Sox.
Absolutely. At Red Sox on SI. You can find my author page. I have 5 pieces going up today, so we're certainly moving and shaking over there. And yeah, I mean, other than that, just catch me back here on the Cam Show at some point, and we'll talk more off season.
Yes, yes, and we certainly will have Jackson back at some point, in a couple of points in this offseason. The season's over, and Jackson really is just getting started when it comes to work. Jackson, thanks so much for taking the time and joining us once again.
Anytime.
There he goes. Jackson Roberts, Sports Illustrated, Boston Red Sox on SI. Check his stuff out, especially in this offseason. He is laying out the trade packages, the free agency priorities. It is really, really great stuff. And we certainly are going to look forward to having him back on the show throughout this Red Sox offseason. But let me know what you think about Alex Bregman opting out. Let me know in the comment section below. Do you think it's priority number one for the Red Sox to re-sign him? Is that paramount for this offseason? Let me know in the comment section. Then be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We come at you live every weekday on YouTube, noon Eastern time, and then we're available wherever you get your podcasts as well. So check out the channel, see the other videos we have going out about the Red Sox, the Patriots, Bruins, everything else going on in the world of Boston sports.